Good morning, or good Saturday morning. Thank you guys for coming out and to observe our training for political parties. So I'm Regina McRay. I'm the new elections manager. You guys know Daryl Doggs, the chief deputy auditor. Amy is the supervisor, and Steve is the public information officer. So I'm just curious. I know Vinton, but where are the rest of you guys from?
Manchester.
Bremerton.
Seaback.
Seaback, huh? And you're Seaback too, aren't you?
Central,
Okay,
Kitsap,
Central Kitsap.
Silverdale.
Okay. So this is our political party training. I don't know why that's not working, but we'll just go through this. And if you have any questions, you can just stop me and we'll just continue on from there. So there's an agenda. We have the introductions, which we just did. We have the observer guidelines, the equipment testing, we'll talk about that, the process overview, the random batch audit, and the canvassing board. And in the end, if you have any questions, then we can go through that. So the observer guidelines, all aspects of the election process is open to observation by political party observers and the general public, and we encourage people to come out and just watch the process. You know, you can watch it online, but if you don't understand what they're doing, it makes no sense. Or like, what are they doing? We had one guy call once, like, what are they doing in there? You know, because it looked weird to him, but if you don't know how the process works, then it, you know, so we encourage people to come in and watch the process. And that'll start actually Tuesday or Monday. We have training, and then the whole group comes in on Tuesday morning for training, and then we'll get started after that. But these are your everyday average citizens that, you know, they applied. We hired them. A lot of them have been here for years. Just, they love it. You haven't called me yet. Is it time? You know, so they love to do it. It's, you know, they feel it's their civic duty as a citizen to, you know, come out and, you know, do this. And so we really appreciate that. And without their help, we couldn't get it done. We're a staff of 9 in the auditors, in the elections office. And it is, it's just online. So we're having, we're going to post, when is August 22nd is going to post, and it's going to post for 3 weeks. And we're hiring for, or we're taking, we're going to take a list for ballot processors, the vote centers, ballot pickup, and office support. So those are the positions that we hire for. And we always are looking to increase because people retire, you know, and all other things. So we're always looking for people, you know, to work for us. And so you would apply online. We get the applications. We'll, you know, go through them. The ones that we feel are qualified, we would just contact you, have basically a phone interview, and then have you come in and work and go through that process. After a background check, yes. So
Where would we find that online?
at kitsapgov.com under
.gov.
kitsap.gov. That's new to us. Kitsap.gov.
.com.
.gov is actually, yeah.
Thank you. Kitsapgov.gov.
No, kitsap.gov. Kitsap.gov. And if you look under on that page, if you go to the bottom, I think it's to the right, it says job openings or something like that. And just click on there and scroll down till you see elections. So the official party observers should be appointed by the major party chairperson. You guys know how that works. So again, if you have any questions or concerns when you're in that process of in the back room and you have a question or something, you can talk with Daryl, myself, Steve, or Amy, whoever's going to be back there. It's permanent staff. We don't. We ask that the observers not interrupt the process and talk to the workers because they're there to do a job. And so we just really want them to focus because it's easy to get off track. And so we just want them to focus. So any questions while you're back there, talk to one of the permanent staff people that are there. Let's see. So some of the guidelines is, you know, you can't touch the ballots, the ballot containers, or election equipment. Like I said, I just talked about we can't disrupt the process. And we can't divulge, you can't divulge any information before 8 p.m. election night. And we say that because some people, like if you're standing over someone watching them do a batch, and let's say maybe the majority of their batch is for one person that you're looking at in particular in a race, and you may think, oh my gosh, that person's winning. Well, you don't know about the other 70,000 ballots that are out there. So, you know, some people will walk away and go, oh, that person's winning. Well, you don't know that because you still got all these other ballots that have to be counted. So we just ask that that does not happen. So where and what you can observe. So we have 3 vote centers. There'll be one here Saturday the 30th and Monday, which is the 1st, and they'll be here 8:30 to 4:30. And then on election day, it's 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. and that's at all the locations. So you can come here. We have a center at the Marvin Williams in Bremerton, and we have one in Paulsbo at the Paulsbo Fire Station.
What was the time? Yeah, could you give the time?
Sure. So Saturday and Monday, it's 8:30 to 4:30. And then on election day Tuesday, it'll be 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. or until the last voter's done voting. I'm sorry. Up until certification. So certification is August 16th. So any ballots that come in postmarked on time or military ballots, we count up until the day before certification. Let's see. So again, you can observe at the 3 vote centers. You can come to our ballot processing room. So you can come through the main doors like you did and go to the back where the elections, and you'll sign in. They'll give you a name tag to put on, or there's on the side of our elections door, you can ring the doorbell and we'll let you in. Vit knows about that one. So yeah, so you can watch that process. Now we also do signature verification in another part of the auditor's office. You're welcome to watch that. So the people that we hire, we do them in batches of 300, and they'll go and signature check every ballot, match it against the signature when you register to vote versus what you signed on the ballot envelope. So we match those two. And sometimes we have a lot of people that have a lot of signatures because, you know, they get older, you know, or if you're young and you weren't taught how to write in cursive, and now you're learning how to write in cursive now that you're out of school. So those signatures change. So we always try to get updates on the signatures if we notice a change. It may be you, but something's different about it. So we'll send out a signature verification or a signature update form, and we'll put that in the record. So we would have your different signatures. Yes.
So what I'm hearing you saying is that if someone has changed their signature and you catch it, you send out a form to that individual to
Yes.
re-sign a signature and come back in and you just update your records out.
We update the record. We match that new signature against what they sign on the ballot envelope. Yes.
Just for in case this audio isn't working great, can you repeat what she said?
Oh, okay, I can do that. So the question was, when someone has a signature challenge, do we send out a notice to all those people for them to get a signature update? And answer is yes.
In the process though, do you reject that ballot?
It's not
No.
rejected, it's reviewed.
It's reviewed, and so do you go in the, hope this is okay. In the process of you reviewing it, do you send out that form to the individual and say, please update the signature? And then they update it, and then you would consider it a valid ballot, or do you kick out that ballot?
No, and actually after we're done here, if you want, I'll take anybody on a tour of the ballot processing room and the signature verification where we can go over a lot more of that stuff. But there's only one group of people that can actually reject a ballot, and that's called the canvassing board. That's by law in Washington State. And that happens on election certification, which was, what was the date for the primary?
The first day is the 15th, and we certify on the 16th.
On the 16th
Of
of
August.
August. And that canvassing board is made up of the prosecuting attorney or prosecuting attorney's designee, the auditor or the auditor's designee, which is me this year, and whoever the chair of the Board of County Commissioners is. And up until that point, we worked desperately hard to what we call cure signatures. So if there's a signature that's in question, first off, it's reviewed by an even more experienced person in group of people in signature verification, higher trained. But if it's still in question, then what we do is we do everything we can to contact that person. If we've got an email for you, we're going to email you. If we've got a phone number for you, we're going to call you. Plus, you're going to get contacted via mail. So, and we have right up until election certification to cure those signatures.
I'll add a little flavor to this. I have a couple of friends who had this happen. And they noticed you can check when you cast your ballot to see if it's processed and been accepted. And their ballots were not accepted. And they knew they turned them in at a ballot box way early. So they checked in and yep, signatures didn't match. I think they actually came in here.
You can come in and go to one of the vote centers. You can do it
They
via
got
mail.
ahead of the
Yeah.
process, I think.
Yeah.
And came in and signed a new card and everything was fine. And they proved they were themselves, right?
But in the process, did their ballot count?
Yes,
In
absolutely.
the end, the ballot
In the
counts.
end, yes.
Once the ballot isn't open until we can verify the signature. But right
So
up
they're just
until,
looking at the signature on the outside of the
Yeah.
envelope.
and then once the signature is verified, is certified, then that ballot then can be processed.
Yeah, I was just wondering about the time lapse. How much time it takes to do that, because,
Sometimes,
someone could go in and just say, let's just change the signature on here and, vote a different way or whatever, or just rechange the signature for that person.
yeah, that couldn't happen. No, we have to prove that person is the right person.
So I understand that part,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we right up until we will have people that will come in and verify right before the canvassing board certifies, and then we then go process those ballots to make sure their votes count. Yeah, yeah, and the one of the reasons that always makes me feel very assured that signature verification process works is there is literally nobody that works in the elections department that hasn't had their ballot signature challenged. Mine gets challenged periodically because I have this really sloppy signature and I have 3 different signatures that I use at different times. And my ballot gets challenged and I have to verify it. So I've got to verify, my ID, I'm signing the certification, all of that sort of stuff.
So once that happens, we capture that new signature. So when we go to sig check again, we'll see the multiple signatures that person has. Because you can watch someone's signature over the years, and so we have that we signature verify against those signatures that we have. Any more questions about that?
Let me just add, when you observe, in most cases, especially early when the ballots come in, the first week or so that the ballots come in, they're almost always, when you would come in, comparing signatures, and you can watch that process. You can see them, you can see that some people may have 2 or 3 different signatures. It's on record that they compare that ballot signature to. So I encourage you to look at that process when you do come in to observe.
Yes. Yeah. So, and then once their signature verified, they run through and we sort our ballots by consolidated precincts, which is the area of county you're in, like Bainbridge Island is CP4. So if we ever had a recount on Bainbridge, we know, go pull all the ballots that were from CP4 instead of having to look through the whole county. And so they'll be scanned back through or sorted through by their consolidated precincts, and then their letter opened. We give them a tracking, so we track all the ballots from start to finish, and so we will give it a tracking number, and it'll say, batch 1, CP4, there's 200 in this batch, and then it goes into our database. Michael's our tech guru. He set it up to where whatever we put on there, it goes into, and we keep track of all the numbers of how many ballots we received, how many were accepted, how many are under review. So we keep track of all that and watch that. So once that's done, then the workers can go and check out a batch. So they're going to take that tray tag ticket that they just created and check in, and it's their batch number. So we know we can go back and say, oh, Amy did this batch. Amy, you know, what happened if something went wrong? So the first thing they do is they're going to count those ballots to make sure there's actually 200 in that batch, because if not, you're like, excuse me, I don't have 200 ballots in here. And we'll pull it off the tray, give them a new one, and then we'll go through and research and see why we're off in that number. And that's how we keep track of where we are in the process. And so that happens. And then we already did the LNA. You guys can watch it online if you want. And that's just to prove that the ballot tabulation machines are counting the votes correctly. And that's a state law that we have to do this before every election.
What does LNA stand for?
Logic and accuracy test. Okay. And then we do the random batch audit. So on the day of election, we'll randomly pick 6 batches, and we'll pick one contest that's countywide or statewide, actually, you know, sometimes. And a few years back, we had the governor's race where they had 27 people. So we had to do that random batch audit. It was a long process, but we got it done. And what the machine counted is what we counted manually by hand. And so that showed that the machine was counting the ballots. And that's our check also, to say it was right. Yes, Vinton?
And you can, although you missed it, you can, they have a video of the LNA test online at Kitsap.gov elections, and you can go see what they do to perform the logic and accuracy test. And I encourage you to do that.
Thank you. Okay. And so again, we don't know results until 8 o'clock on election night. The tabulation machine doesn't even let us. If we wanted to check and, oh, who's went? No, it doesn't. It's 8 o'clock on election night. It will let us finally push the button and see what the results are. So we can't look and see who's, you know, winning or.
Can I ask a question on that? Then what I don't understand is how the national media can say, oh, you know, they're leading in this state or this state. If it's, how can they even determine that if their elections, you're not supposed to put out those numbers? After it, pardon?
Those are from polling data.
Polling data. Oh, just being outside and interviewing people? Is that what
Or calling, or, I mean, they do all kinds of stuff
So that might not necessarily be accurate then. I mean,
it's never accurate.
yeah. I mean, you know, I'm a newbie in this, so I just want to learn, you know, I'm not getting it, you know,
Yeah.
so.
And we're very glad you're here. We would be thrilled if this room were full. So the more people that know about this, you know, it helps with misinformation and you know, the more informed we are, the better we are. I mean, this is the foundation of our republic democracy. You know, this is really important stuff.
And it's no greater feeling than to hear someone talk what they don't know, and it's like, no, that's not how it works. You know, we do this all across the state. You can come and watch the process. And like I said, we encourage people, come watch the process, because then it'll make sense. Like some of our workers, they're like, we had no idea you had to go through all these steps to get to results on election night. And it's like, no, we have steps by law. We have to, federal and state laws, we have to abide by to get to that final result. And, you know, and at the end of the election, when we certify, we do no, not the random batch audit, the reconciliation report saying, okay, we got this many ballots in that were credited to the voter, and we counted this many ballots. And that has to match. And if it's not, we need to go and figure out why, because we have to submit that to the Secretary of State's office, why our numbers are off.
That's why you're part of the auditor's office.
It is an audit process, it is. And so when they're processing their ballots, when they're opening up the batch of 200, so the first step they're going to do is they're going to count and make sure they have 200 ballots and all CP4s. And sometimes the machine will throw a different CP in there, but they'll catch that because they'll have 201 instead of 200. And so we go back and pull that out of that number. And so what they're doing is their first step, again, because it's already been signature checked, they're going to separate the lavender envelope from the ballot and the secrecy sleeve. Once they have separated all of that, they're going to tie up the lavender envelopes and put them aside in their tray, because they're in a tray. and then they're going to separate the ballot from the secrecy sleeve. And once all 200 of those are done, they're going to tie up the secrecy sleeves and put those aside. So all you're looking at this point is ballots. So you're going to open up each ballot and look both sides, make sure you know the machine can count the ballot. If there's if there's stray marks, if they voted more than one candidate, those go to further review where two people have to look at it and decide, okay, what's the rule? And we have a statewide voter intent book that we use, and these are the laws that says, okay, based on what this voter did, this is how this ballot needs to be counted. And if it doesn't have anything to do with what's in this voter intent manual, then it goes to the canvassing board, and they make that determination about what, how the vote should be counted.
Have you ever called the voter to see, hey, we've got this ballot in here,
We
you've got
wouldn't
two
have any
ballots?
way of
We
doing
don't
that.
know.
They've separated.
Oh, right,
don't-
right,
we don't
okay.
know those-
Duh, because it's,
It's
see,
a
okay,
secret
newbie.
vote.
Yeah.
Man, newbie.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the cool
Yeah.
thing about our Republic.
Yeah, once it's removed, we don't,
Yeah,
So,
you-
so,
You don't want government officials knowing how you individually vote.
well,
That's
that's,
right.
so that's why it just raised a question in my mind. You go back on their previous voting, I mean, that didn't make sense to me. If they had both checks for a Republican and a Democrat, you said you review previous voting? I don't,
No, so you're talking about the presidential primary. That's the only time you have to pick a party, and that's based on the party's rules. So when those ballots are done, you have to pick a party on the envelope. So, so when we do that in the presidential primary, when the ballots come in from the post office and from the drop box locations, the first thing we do is we separate them by how they checked on the box, R or D. That's the first thing we do to make sure. And then let's say we put all the D's up and we'll just focus on R's because your mind works. You know how your mind works, you may get confused. So we only have, let's say, R's on the table. Everyone's working on R's right now. So when you're working on those R's and you see, okay, they marked R, but then once you separate it out again, and then you come across a ballot that they voted a D. Well, that doesn't count because they said, hey, I'm a Republican, but on the inside I vote as a Democrat. So
That's all, not just for clarification.
It's a
That's
what?
only once every 4 years. It's only in the presidential primary, and that's required by state law.
Yes.
That in the presidential primary, when you're voting for the president, who you want to be president, to nominate, you have to declare.
So that would be coming up in the 2024 elections, you would be going through that process?
Yes, yes, so that's the only time, and then.
And only for
That's
that
during the
race.
primary, that's only during the primary?
It's only during the presidential primary,
Presidential
which
primary.
is separate from our regular primary,
Yeah.
All the other elections.
all the other races.
and so then 60 days after the election certifies, that information goes off of your record after that. So no, it comes off the record because people can ask for that data during the election, okay, who voted R's and who voted D's. But 60 days after the election or after certification, that information goes off of the record. Yeah.
So that people can't then go back years later and say, oh, you were a Republican or you were a Democrat in 1999.
And so anyway, if the vote is not in this voter intent manual, it goes to the canvassing board, and they're the only ones who can decide whether to reject or accept a ballot. And so then we're going to talk about the ballot programming and testing. Any more questions about that process? Like I said, it'll make more sense when you come and watch it. We can talk about it all day, but until you actually see the process, then you go, oh, okay, I get it. So the ballot layout, the programming, testing, and tabulation are completed by county staff. And so once the people that file for office in May, once they're certified by the state, now we can start building the ballots based on different, the area of town, the congressional, legislative, all that. We do that. We test those once we build the ballot. We get them test ballots printed. We test those printed ballots to make sure it's going to read through the machine. We do a lot of proofing to make sure
Names are spelled right.
names are spelled right, or whatever the case may be. So we do that, and every once in a while we do mess up. Anytime humans are involved, there's a chance for error, and we have had that happen. So, and then they're tested and tabulated by the I call them my computer gurus because they just understand the technical stuff, and so they do all that. The software and hardware is federally and state certified for that, and that includes the hashtag I heard Daryl talking about earlier, and it's just testing of all the machines in the tabulation room, and the touch writer, which is just an electronic marking device. You mark on the screen, and then it'll print you out your ballot, and you can check it and make sure, mark the ones that you wanted, and that's what that is. Let's see. And then several days of testing and staff training prior to logic and accuracy tests. So they're steady testing everything to make sure it's going to scan and record the votes correctly on that. So yeah, any questions about that? Okay. So about the logic and accuracy test. So the testing already happened for August. You can go online and watch that. But we test before every election, state law, and so we haven't determined the date yet. But once we do, we'll get it out on the website and the media. And so, based on the state law, those test ballots are marked in a pattern. And so when we run them through, that pattern has to be there that says 1 in the first, 2 in the second, 3 in the third, depending on how many candidates is in that race. And so it's a determined pattern that we have to come up with. And so that what we call a matrix is what it is. It shows the number of precincts, the splits for each contest in the election. And that is, again, another way to check and make sure we're doing what we need to be doing. And so the counting system report and the matrix totals are matched to make sure how we mark the ballot and how, once we ran them and printed out the report, that they match. And if they don't, we have to go and figure out, where they messed up at. I think one year they marked the first side of the ballot, forgot to go and mark the second side. So it's like, okay, we got to do that again. But normally, usually when we mess up, we try not to do that again. So it's like, oh yeah, we did that once. We don't want to do that. So yeah. So again, any discrepancy is researched and the test is rerun. And again, it's open for observation. You guys are more than welcome to come in. If anyone hadn't been on vacation, he'd have been there. But he was on vacation. But yeah, come in and watch the process. It really is a fascinating part, of elections. And then again, it's live streamed on our county website. And even though I already went through some of this, this is how the initial ballot processing works. So starting on Monday, we'll have teams. They will go, we have, including our box here, we have 25 drop boxes throughout the county. And so that team will go out and start picking up ballots from the drop boxes. It's 2 people that has to go out, and they have all their supplies. When they get to the drop box, they open it. There's a seal already. Everything has been prepared. There's a seal on the drop boxes. They have to tear the seal off, get into it, put the ballots in the box, seal the box. So when they come back in here, the teams that are back here, they're going to make sure the seals are the same seals that they seal the ballots with, and make sure if not, there's a discrepancy. Yes.
Are those done every night they're picked up, or?
No, we usually do Monday, Wednesday, Friday during the election. During the presidential not the presidential election, but the 2024 coming up, we might go out every day just because the volume is so heavy. But normally it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday for the 2 weeks up to election week, and then we'll go out that Monday, Tuesday. And the Wednesday after, we just send a crew out to go and make sure nothing was left behind. So a couple times we found ballots on top of the box after the slot was closed. Yeah, the
And
box
so
was locked.
You still pick up those ballots?
We pick up those ballots.
But they wouldn't count.
They don't get
Right.
Because
Yes.
because if they're sitting on top of the box,
Right.
that means it was after
It
it
was
was
8.
locked.
So we would date it. We would put the date on it, put the time on it, and those are considered too late. And the canvassing board again would reject those, and then the people will get a letter in the mail saying, "Hey, your ballot was returned too late. Here's some options for you for the next election, so that doesn't happen again." So yeah, anytime we have to do something with the ballot that's not in the normal stream, we have to contact the voter to give them the option, if they can, to correct that problem. But after Election Day, it's too late. So we have a staff that goes to the post office, also to pick up ballots from the post office, and those are actually sealed. They get them from the post office, put them in our boxes, seal them, and then bring them back to our office. And the group of people back there, they will open those boxes and make sure the seals are correct, and go from there and count them and get them ready to be scanned. So the sorter that we use in back, it captures the signature on the ballot envelope. So that's the first step. Once we get all the ballots in trays, that's the first step. Is the sorter's going to scan through, and it's going to capture every signature on every ballot envelope. And then from there, the files are transferred into the election system, and then that way, now you can look at the ballot signature, and you can look at the registration system or signature. Yes.
So if somebody forgets to sign their ballot, it gets kicked out.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Would you reach out to them
yes.
in that case? Yes.
Anytime there is a challenge of and we get a lot of people, they forget to sign their ballot, or like again, the signature doesn't match.
Yeah, but since the first is capturing the signature, if there's no signature to capture, that's the first place you kick it.
Yeah, those actually, do we kick those out anymore? I can't remember.
So when they're being scanned through, they won't be necessarily picked up for that reason. It would be caught in the signature check portion of.
There is a way that the machine could kick those out, but just for our sake, for make sure it's consistent, we do that ourselves.
Got it.
So
there's a manual check.
Yes, yes. And so we'll contact that voter for that. So the signatures are verified. Once they're verified, it'll run back through the sorter, and if the signature wasn't challenged, it'll just go into a tray of 200. But if the ones that are challenged, we have a challenge tray that all of those challenges will go in, whether they forgot to sign, the signature didn't match.
They sign their spouse's ballot, which happens all the time.
No.
That's the most common one, is husband and wife have accidentally signed each other's ballots.
Yes, we get that quite often. So then the questionable ballots go to further review. And again, we have two people that, well, let me back up. So the ballots are sorted by precinct group or challenged, and then the ballot tracking slips and pre-inspection. So again, they're going to check the ballot tracking slip, make sure there's 200, make sure the CP is right, and then they can start the process. And then questionable ballots at that point in their batch of 200, they might have 20 that are questionable based on they voted twice in the same contest, or they made a mark, said, oh, I don't want this person, I want this person. So all those go to further review, and we have two people, a team of two that goes through and processes those.
And that's where they use the voter intent
Yes.
manual when they need to.
Exactly.
Hey,
And
I'm sorry. Okay, do you have any statistics like on husband-wife situation where it's kicked out? Basically, you give them the opportunity to come in and say, and sign their own ballot?
no, for those, we'll find, normally they're back-to-back, so we'll just give the husband credit and the wife credit. So what we do is, if Bob signed Jean's ballot, we'll put Bob's label on that because that's his signature. And then we would do the same for Jean, and then we can run those through.
So
But that's only if a husband and wife have signed each other's ballots.
Yes.
if we can find its match and
Yes.
we can pull up, so anybody in the signature check process, we can pull up everybody in their household. So we
Right.
can say, oh, it looks like, okay, Jean obviously signed Bob's. We can set that aside. Eventually Bob's will come through and, or Jean's will come through and we'll see Bob has signed hers too. And then we can put labels on, count the ballots and credit them.
Yes.
But if we can't, then if we can't verify the
letter.
signature for any reason,
Yeah.
we then immediately
Contact the voter.
contact.
Yes.
So to her point, what are the stats on that? Roughly what percent?
I don't, we have those, but golly, I don't know. As far
For
as which
husband and
ones are
wife?
husband
No,
and wife.
signature
signature.
verification.
Yeah, it's,
Signature verification. in general.
it's pretty low, but we have all that data.
Mhm.
But I don't know it off the top.
Some elections start off pretty high as far as signature challenges, or we call them, they're under review because they are under review. In other elections, we don't have that many, but if it's, usually the elections that have the write-ins is usually the ones, I don't know why, but I think you get voter fatigue when you got a front and back ballot, and and so and sometimes they just forget, or just signature doesn't match, they're tired, or someone else in the household may have signed the ballot, and so we have to contact. Anytime there's a discrepancy, we have to contact the voter and say, hey, your signature doesn't match.
Can I go back to one other thing? So let's say I've been a pretty active voter and voted in most elections, and then I'm out of the country or whatever, and I don't vote for 4 years. So I'm inactive now, but I think I'm still registered. How do I become an active voter again?
You would just call us. If you're inactive, you would just call and say, hey, my address changed, here's my new address, we would just reactivate your
Or I
record.
just didn't vote the last couple times.
So the law says you have to be inactive for 2 federal elections,
Oh, okay.
and then after that, then you would be canceled from the record,
And
from the
I would have to re-register.
re-register. Yes,
Okay.
yes, and we get that a lot with, I'll probably say military, because they only vote. I can't say they only vote, but a lot of them only vote during the presidential election. They don't vote for anything else. But so they come back
You'd
in.
have to have not voted in 2 presidential elections
Got
for that to
it. I
happen.
can't imagine that, but yeah.
Yeah.
And then you can still register to vote again.
Sure. Yeah, I was just wondering what it takes to get activated.
Yeah.
So,
It's really
It's
easy.
really
yeah, it
simple,
sounds
yeah.
like it.
Yeah.
Okay. And so ballot security is always maintained. We have, 2-person rule. So right now in the tabulation room where we tabulate the results, normally when they're building the ballots, 1 person can get in with their badge. But once we do the LNA test, you need 2 permanent staff badges to be able to get into that room. So everything is locked down at that point.
And also, that room is what's called air gap, which means there's no connection between any computer in that room and anything outside of that room. There's no internet connection. In fact, the computers that tabulate the ballot, that scan the ballots, aren't even connected to the computer that tallies it that's in that room. So there's no way to hack it externally.
And then for signature verification, all the workers, when they come in on Tuesday, they'll go through. So we go through signature verification through the Washington State Patrol. They have their own division. So we've all done that. And so then we take their training and incorporate into our part of our training for the ballot processors. And so it's Washington State law that says we have to, verify the signatures. So all workers assigned to verify signatures receive the training, and that'll happen on Tuesday. And so what we're looking at for signature verification is the same style and general appearance. Some people's signatures never change. It's like, oh yeah, that's Amy's. She never changed. Some people over time it changes. Some people, like I said, what we noticed was kids coming out of high school, they print when they first learn to, when they register to vote, and then all of a sudden now they realize, you can't sign for a car if you can't do a signature. So they're trying to, and I didn't know this until my daughter was like, Mom, what do they mean I have to sign my name? I did sign my name. I'm like, no, you can't print anymore. You're signing legal documents. You need to be able to, so she had to sit down and figure out how her signature was gonna go. And one of the ladies that records a lot of documents in recording, she said they were having the same problem with, young people buying houses, and they have to sign the documents and they don't know how to sign because they stopped teaching. Yeah, exactly. So I think they are going back to that, but that was one of the problems. Yeah. Yeah, and so again, we look at the proportion of letters, heights, height to width, because some people start off with a big, let's say big R, and then you go, smaller, or however they do it. So we look at all of that. We look at the spacing, the slants and the size, of all the letters. We look at the style, we look at the slope, we look at the placement, and we look at the alignment. Because some people, when they sign like going up, or some sign going down. usually that doesn't change. You know, it's very interesting that signatures don't change a lot over, because you can still see some characteristics in most people's signature, but if it's way off, it's like, oh yeah, we need a new signature because maybe, you know, health issue, something happened, and so we have to get a new signature. So there's distinct or unusual traits that, you know, some people sign with. There's natural variations exist in a signature. And we tell them, you know, a single trait is insufficient for validation. So my R's are always big. Well, you can't just look at the R and think, oh yeah, that's Regina's, you know, signature. No, you need to look at the in general, in whole. You got to look at the whole thing, because my thought is the way we were taught in school, you're still going to do that first, you know, letter, you know, like you were taught in school. And so that can't say, oh yeah, that's that person, because you don't know that for sure.
Are these on a screen, like a monitor?
Yeah, if you go to your next page.
Yes, there it is. I'm ahead of myself.
So, so when the signature check is usually up to 300 in a batch, and so they'll log in under their own login, so we can go back and say, oh, we know Regina did this batch, and she missed, you know, that. So what they're looking at is the envelope signature is the first signature that you're looking at. So that's what they sign on the ballot envelope. And then the signature below is the signature we got when they registered to vote. And so we also tell them, make sure at the top, you make sure the name is Michael, so you're going to make sure Michael is all the way down in there, because sometimes it may be Michelle who signed. But if you're just seeing, oh, the M, and you're not looking at, oh, no, this isn't Mike who signed it, it was Michelle who signed it, or Mike or Michael, however they do that, Bob, Robert, you know, as long as the signature matches, we can count that. And so you go through, it's 4 on a page, and you don't have to touch it unless there's a review. If something's wrong with the signature, you're going to click on the review button, and then the other ones are all accepted. You'll go to the next page, and it'll go all the way through to the 300. And so again, those ballots aren't rejected, they're under review. So once they go under review, they'll kick out of the scanning machine, and the office staff up front gets those, and they go through, because they have a little bit more experience than the crew back there, because they're looking, yeah, we're cranking through them. So they look at those and say, oh, okay, yeah, this is the signature. Oh no, this doesn't match, we need to send out a letter. And so the computer, if we challenge it as signature doesn't match, the computer will generate a letter for us to send out to them. Let's see what else. So once they're done signature verification, we're going to again run those through. And if they're good, they're going to go in their batches by their CPs in a batch of 200 or whatever the number is. Anything that's challenged, there's a challenge trade just for challenges. And that, again, goes up to the office staff up front, and they'll look at each one of those individually. So the ballots are sorted into batches by their consolidated precincts, again, based on the area of the county. Batches are assigned a tracking number. Election workers are going to check out their batches, and they can only check out one batch at a time. Ballots and secrecy sleeve are separated from the return envelope. Ballots are reviewed to determine if it's ready to scan or if they require further review. So again, if the ballot looks good, they voted correctly, both sides, great, it's ready to count. But those ones where they voted twice in one contest, or they scratched out and said, nope, I don't want this one, those, again, go to further review, because we want 2 people to look at that and go, okay, this is the rule based on voter intent that, you know, it has to go to further review. And so once that happens, so the one where they voted twice in one contest, that's just an overvote. And so when it goes into the tabulation room, they're going to count that as an overvote. Or if they said, nope, I don't want this person, I want this person, they would deselect the one. I haven't been in there in a while, but they would deselect the one to make sure we captured the voter's intent on the ballot. Let's see. So again, here are the examples that would go to further review if the ballot is damaged. A few years back, it seemed like a lot of people in the Bremerton area, they cut the barcodes off the ballot because someone told them it tells who you are, and it doesn't. The barcode is the date, the precinct numbers, and each one is individual. They have their own unique number. But someone was told, oh, it tells who you are. Yes, yes, and it doesn't. So we had a lot of those that we had to duplicate because it won't go through the machine without the barcode.
So you still count the ballot, obviously,
Yes,
just a full
yes,
search.
yes, yes. Let's see. Pencils. It can see pencils, but pencils kind of, because sometimes it raises up to where it's kind of like shiny, a reflection of it. Sometimes it won't pick up because it's too light. So on the side of caution, we send those to further review. 2 people look at them, and if we feel the machine may not look at that, we have in the further review batch, we have a manual which says, okay, we need you to actually, when you're in there getting ready to look at these ballots to count, you need to actually pull up that batch, look at this ballot, and make sure it actually caught that voter's choice. Because, again, pencil can be kind of, so we want to make sure that voter's ballot was counted correctly. Corrections, overvotes, whiteout. We just say whiteout because if someone used whiteout to, change their mind or whatever, when it goes through the machine, the whiteout could slip on one of the rolls and it could possibly, miss a vote because that whiteout goes on another ballot. So that's why we say pull out all whiteouts. Stray marks, if they're voting for their ballot and they're kind of wild with it and it goes up into the barcode, well, it's not going to read it. So you'd have to pull that one out. Then that goes to the barcode issues. If they mark in the barcode area, the machine's not going to read that ballot. And so we have to what we call duplication. And here we are right now, ballot duplication. So any ballot that cannot be scanned by the tabulation system has to be duplicated. And again, it's damaged. Some people, even though they get a ballot in the mail, they won't vote their ballot, they will vote the sample ballot. They will cut the sample ballot out of the local voters pamphlet and vote that. And as long as they put it back in their envelope, and we verified this, the signature, we can count that. We just have to duplicate it. But some people are they don't want to vote their ballot. They like the sample ballot. Online ballots, so people that are, you can access your ballot online but if you're not military or overseas, you have to either mail it in or drop it in one of our drop boxes. Military can return their ballots by email. So all those ballots that are online, they have to be duplicated. And again, that's a 2-person process. So a ballot can be duplicated only if the voter's intent can be clearly determined. If it can't, it goes to the canvassing board and they'll make that determination of what that vote should be. We have 2 people that work together during the ballot duplication process. And so we keep an audit log of all duplicated ballots. So, if we're first starting, me and Amy, we're going to write our names on this dupe log. And our first ballot is going to be 1. So the ballot that we're duplicating is 1. And the new ballot that we have to duplicate to, because it won't read the old ballot, the numbers have to match. And so we go through that process, duplicate those ballots. And again, we, put our initials on both ballots to say, okay, AE and RM duplicated this ballot. And then we have a separate team that comes behind them and they audit those ballots to make sure that the votes were captured correctly on those duplicated ballots.
And the purpose for duplicating the ballots?
It's because the machine is not going to read it. If the barcode is missing or just any of those ones that were previously. Yeah, so those they have to be duplicated because the machine, there's no barcode to read from the machine.
Or because there's whiteout on it.
If there's whiteout on it or something like that. So yeah, and so we duplicate
And there are other reasons to duplicate too, like say somebody was doing their ballot and they were eating their dinner and they dribbled all over. We don't want that food to go through the machine because it will make it not scammer. And so, but again, if we have to duplicate a ballot, there are 4 people, 2 teams of 2, that will verify that duplicate ballot is exactly what the voter intended on the first ballot.
And sometimes we get a ballot with coffee spilled all over it, or, so we just duplicate them. Okay, any questions about that duplicating process? Okay. Oh, I'm ahead of myself. And then the return statistics and results reporting. So Steve is our return statistics guy, so he'll start reporting as we count ballots. And sometimes I'm thinking we'll probably count every day, maybe not. It just depends on how the ballots flow in, because Monday probably will be busy. Tuesday, kind of, as the week goes on, the mail gets lighter and lighter, so we may process ballots Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They may take Thursday off because there's not enough to keep them going, and maybe come in Friday, or they may take Thursday, Friday off and come back in Monday. That way we have enough work for our workers to do what they need to do. And so Steve will report by 5 o'clock on those days that we do process ballots. Okay.
And this is the percent of precincts reporting and how many,
No,
or what are the return statistics? What are they?
So they are the number of ballots that have come in and have been accepted.
Got it.
And it's a percent, there's a countywide number, so it's a percentage of the county. And then when we can, we break it down by district.
Right.
So that people know, like in this election, 23rd, 35th, 26th legislative district, there'll be reports for per district as well.
And both parties, both of the major parties, and then a whole ton of the candidates are reviewing those statistics. Anybody can, but that's traditionally who is going over those statistics.
And so again, it's as we count ballots is when we'll put a new posting up on the website for that. So the random audit, talked a little bit about that. So we're required by law to perform a random audit of our tabulation equipment. We want to verify that the machine is counting the votes correctly. So we do a manual hand recount of 6 batches. A single.
1,200 ballots.
Well, it just depends on how many's in the batch, because even though we say 200, let's say CP4 this day only had 50 in a batch, so it just depends on, but up to 200 is, yes. And actually it's not even up to 200, because out of the 200 when they started, maybe 20 of them went to further review.
Got it.
So it could be, so yeah. I think the last time we had like 500 and something in our, I can't remember exactly, but yeah. And it's, you're counting each ballot, 2 people are counting the ballots. Yes, ma'am.
So are these like random ballots in the batch, or are they separated out by precincts in each batch of 200?
No. They're consolidated by the group of area they live in the county. So like I said, Bainbridge has, Bainbridge is CP4, but inside CP4 is all the precincts that Bainbridge has. And Bainbridge starts at 301 and it ends at 345. So I think they have like 17 precincts within there. Consolidated precincts based on your area of town.
And how are those mapped? Just out of curiosity, is that like
We
census
actually
blocks, or?
we actually do that here. We actually have a map. We still have a map on the wall in there. We have a map on the wall that we can show you, and that's just so that we group them by area of the county, so that if we have to go back and audit or recount or something is challenged, we don't have to pull out all 270,000 ballots. We can pull just from that area.
Just the ones affected by that.
Right.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So does the machine, help me, how does that batching, how do you isolate them into the different CPs?
So the machine does that. So the machine, we have CPs 1. Yeah, there's a barcode on your ballot envelope.
Yeah.
And so the machine, based on that barcode, is going to drop the ballots into precincts or CPs 1 through 9. Okay. So 1, 2, I think, 1 and 2 is, 1 and 2 is Central, or South Kitsap. I forget what 3 may be part of Bremerton, 4 is Bainbridge, I know that because it's pretty simple, and 5 is still part of Bremerton, and 6 and 7, part of 8 is Central Kitsap, and then North Kitsap is the rest of them. So it's based on that geographical area. Yes.
Is the audit just for the number of ballots, or do you look at, say there's 200 and there's 100 Ds and 100 Rs?
No, we don't. So only time you're gonna there's nothing on your ballot that says D or R, well, except for the candidates, but that's not what we're looking at. What we're looking at is who they marked, as their candidate.
What's the audit for? Just the number of ballots?
Right, no, not the number, it's a total. So when we pull those 6 random batches, the technical analysts, they're going to run those 6 batches on a separate machine and get a total of what the votes should be, what the tally should be.
What do you mean by
By
ballots?
race?
By race.
Okay.
So let's say we pick, what's a district? Let's say the sheriff's, we pick that one, that's countywide. So that's the race we're going to focus on for that. So he's going to run that report. He's going to run all those ballots through that has, all the county has a sheriff race on it. So those 6 batches are going to run through the machine. He's going to get a total of, how many each candidate got, whether there was overvotes or undervotes. Now those 6 batches that he has on the machine, no one sees those results except me and Daryl. And then we're going to get, what do we do, 2 to 4 people, just depending on how many there are. And then they're going to take those ballots and manually count them by hand, giving each candidate their right total. So they're going to.
You are checking to see if they were given to the right people.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So if it said candidate A had 200 and candidate B had 400, the machine says that. Well, when we're counting by hand, that's what we better have at the end, Otherwise, we have to go back and recount. And if we have a mistake, it's because someone miscounted. And so we have to make sure that happens. Yes.
Who or what determines random?
So on election day, there's ballots in the cabinet. And so what we do is, each batch in the cabinet has a ticket number. We put them in a little bucket, and then we just randomly pull 6 batches out of there. Say, okay, go pull batch 300.
It's actually like a drawing.
Yeah, it's a drawing. It's a drawing. So we pull out those 6 batches. We separate them from all the other ballots because we want a total just of those 6 batches run, so we can have a total. So when they do the manual hand recount, we just have those totals.
Does anybody know the rationale for having a stinking machine count the votes when we have brains?
Efficiency. We're talking about, counting 270,000 ballots with individual.
To me, an election is worth whatever it costs to do that.
Yeah, and that's why we do the random batch audit, to verify that the machines, and the interesting thing about it is the machines are actually more accurate than humans. So, yeah.
Well,
Because you
I
figure
don't
if
know
you,
about that. Machines can be manipulated.
Well, ours can't.
No. They're machines.
I mean, a
That's
I
why
guess
we
I
have
could-
it, that's why we have an air gap system with
Yeah.
no way of hacking into it, and that's why we do hash tests. That's why we do the logic and accuracy test.
Yeah, I would trust one person from each party counting the votes over a machine. That's just me.
Yeah.
Which is what they do in a recount.
It was
Right.
that's
And if
fair,
there's
yeah,
a
that's
recount,
fair,
yeah.
yeah. It's the
In
recount
close
that does
races, there's a recount that's done exactly that way. Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, that's.
We wouldn't know results, if it's
No, we wouldn't. No, we wouldn't.
it would be days.
Because you have people that work, so we have workers that work on election day. They start at 6 o'clock in the morning, and they don't close down, even though the polls, the vote centers close at 8 o'clock. Well, if someone's in there voting, we can't shut down, we can't start cleaning up until that person is done voting and put their ballot in the box. Then we can start. So they could be, one time we were here till 9 o'clock because
I'm just an old guy sliding out of life, but I remember 1980. We knew the winners that night.
But how many people have moved into the county? how many voters do we have in 1980, for one. And for two, it's just, you have workers who worked all day, 16, 18 hours, and you want them to actually have to stay there all night and basically count like they used to. They used to do that, but the machine, again, we validate the machine totals, by doing the random batch to say, okay, the machine counted these ballots correctly, that the candidate A did, or, candidate B did win over candidate A. The numbers match, and that's what we're checking to verify that the machine is counting correctly.
I would posit that in a situation like that, the machine doesn't get tired. It doesn't make mistakes
I'm not
at
an
2
IT.
a.m.
Yeah, I'm not an IT guy, but I'll tell you, we don't need it. That's
Okay.
my opinion. That's just my opinion. It's too important.
It is important.
It's very important.
So again, with the random batch, so they're scanned, secured separately from other batches, and within 48 hours of election day, we do that manual recount. And again, Vinton has been here for that. It's kind of.
And that's one of the most boring videos you have is watching that random audit.
I bet. Yeah, nothing.
You can go pick up one of the videos on their website, and one of them is the random action, or random access of
Random batch.
random batch audit. And you watch them, and that thing is an hour and a half long probably, and that's what they're doing. They're counting each one of those ballots and putting them in.
One of the things that's really important for those of us that work in elections to remember is that our job is to follow the law and count accurately. I personally am pretty happy with Washington State's system. I wasn't at one time. Our laws have been changed drastically over the last 20 years, tightening up that system. And now as elections officials, whatever the system that is in by law, our job is to follow it, of course. And that's what we do. But in 2004, in our state, there were some huge problems with the elections. And the state legislature has put in place all kinds of laws, including like these random batch audits and stuff like that, and the election security. There has to be two people. You can't, the ballot tracking, all of that. But regardless of if there are things about our election system that somebody is uncomfortable with, we always want to suggest you talk to your state legislators about that, because they actually write the laws for security. So,
May I add something? My first presidential election was 1980, and it was a punch card. And when I got done, I couldn't look at that punch card and know for sure that my ballot said what I thought it said. And I think it was that way for the next couple of decades for me. I don't have a vivid memory of that. Now, I am so glad that we have the ballots that we have here now, where you can see the name and that you've marked the person. And so if worse comes to worse, like we said, like if a race is really close, we have that recountability to be able to look at an actual ballot and see on there that a person can look at it with their eyeballs and see how that vote was supposed to go. So I think that's one of the major improvements that we're seeing now.
we had a mayor's race in Orchard a few years ago that was separated by like 6 ballots. Five, yeah. It was, of course, that race went back and there was multiple hand recounts to verify. There's, in our opinion, there's no room for error in elections, as elections administrator. So.
Well, there's always, I don't know how to phrase this question, but it's just odd to me in some of the recount processes to validate, i.e. there was an election, I don't know how many years ago with the governor's race.
That was in 2004. That's
So
what.
when you're referring
Yeah.
to. And, you know, what really resonates back in my mind is, did they stop recounting because one party got the results they wanted? I mean, if there was three counts of the ballots, and I know this is old, it probably bugs you, it's like,
No, no, no.
No, we still talk about that race today.
I'm disturbed, you know, because you rock, paper, scissors, you win the 2 out of 3, baby, it's yours,
Yeah.
okay? But in that election, you know, Rossi got 2 of those wins, and the other, I don't even remember who he was running against. Gregoire got 1. So why did all of a sudden she's declared the winner? Did it invalidate the other 2 recounts? Why didn't a 4th recount go? Why wasn't there a 4th recount?
Laws have been changed drastically since then because of a lot of those reasons. Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
That wouldn't happen today.
What? Tell me one reason.
Well,
why that
well,
wouldn't
for
happen
one
today.
thing, you've got hand recounts with all the observers. You've got the always 2 people involved, a minimum, or 4, depending on what part of the process. But when it comes to recount, there are now laws around when a recount is required. And even beyond those laws, candidates can request a recount beyond those recounts. Didn't used to be that way. Now, if they follow the laws for, once we follow the laws for when recounts are required because of how close they are and everything, and we've done all the due diligence required by law, if after that a candidate isn't happy with the results, they can then call for a recount again. Now they will have to pay for the cost of the recount, of course. But any candidate or any party can call for a recount after that. It didn't used to be that way. So yeah, all of us election professionals that have been around, we still talk about the 2004 election in this state. There was actually there's a book written on it. There's a documentary. Yeah. You can go back and see an interview on C-SPAN still that's out there on the internet.
So Daryl, what I'm hearing you say is that the recount process itself has been tightened up and is very different from what it was.
Drastically different. Yep. Yep. That whole thing where they found more ballots in King County in that particular race, that couldn't happen. So because of the tracking system, the consolidated precincts, all of that, there's no, oh crap, we found, excuse my language, there's no, oh shoot, we found another box of ballots. That wouldn't happen. So.
I remember that.
Yeah, me too. Me too. It was very frustrating.
And it's still happening in other states.
Yeah, I only work in
Tell me
Washington
it doesn't
State,
happen
so.
here.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, so I'll take the canvassing board. So the canvassing board consists of a county commissioner, prosecuting attorney, and the auditor or their designees. So because Paul is on the ballot this year, Daryl is his designee, and will handle anything related to this election and the November election.
Yeah, when one of the members of the canvass board, whether it's the prosecuting attorney or the county commissioner or the auditor, is on the ballot, they have to actually appoint, somebody else is appointed. And those people actually then don't have access to supervision or anything. An auditor being on the ballot is not allowed in where the ballots are processed without 2 people supervising him. The badge access that we have, his badge access is turned off when when that room becomes secure. And that's every county in the state. Again, didn't used to be that way.
And so only those 3 people can reject a ballot. So sometimes we don't have that many ballots for them to look at. Other times, the majority of the ballots are the signatures didn't match. So what we give them is what we have. The ballot, they look at the ballot and they look at the signatures we have on file, and they determine if the ballot signature matches one of those signatures. And
Sorry, Regina, can I just reiterate that even at this point, even after all that time, we've reached out to the person, the ballots are in front of the canvassing board, they're still unopened. And that's a question that we get sometimes is, well, you've opened all the ballots, you know how I voted, and you're still going to. No, those ballots are still unopened as they're sitting in front of the canvassing board. They have a sample of the person's signatures that we have on file, and they have that sealed ballot. They're all still sealed.
Yeah, the
And
only-
is that process also open for observation?
Oh, yes.
Anybody can come.
And it's actually live stream, we live stream here. That's not required, but it's something that we do in Kitsap County, we live stream. So,
Yes.
all of that. So you don't even actually have to be in the room.
Yes. So they will determine if the challenge ballots can count based on 2 out of 3, because 2 of the members have to say, okay, yeah, we think this signature matches. And then we certify the final election results. And again, the canvassing dates. On the 15th, they're going to go through all the ballots that we challenge, and they're going to go through and say, whether they count or not. Some of them can't be counted, like if they didn't sign and they didn't get in touch with us. We reached out, but they didn't contact us to fill out that form. So those ballots are rejected automatically by them because they didn't respond. If they, let's say, if they marked an X because they can't sign their name because, maybe a health issue, you need 2 signatures for that. Well, if they only get 1 signature on there, we can't count it. We reach out to them, but if they don't return our form, then those ballots will be rejected by the canvassing board. So there's different categories where they have to reject by law, but the ones that they don't, they're going to go through and say, okay, yeah, it matches, no, it doesn't match it. So they're the only ones who can determine whether or not a ballot can be counted. And again, they're the only ones that can set a date and time for recounts, if there's any. And we usually do it, usually within 2 weeks after certification, to go back and recount ballots if we have to. And so for recounts, only after the election is certified, so the election will certify on, August 16th. So after that, then you can call for a recount. I think they have up until 3 days after certification that they can call. So if there's a machine recount, it's because the difference is less than 2,000 votes and 0.5% or 1/2%. That's a machine recount. A manual recount is a difference less than 1/4% and local races less than 150 votes and statewide less than 1,000 votes.
What's the average cost for recounts?
What is it like?
There isn't one,
Really
because
depends on-
it would really depend on the size of the recount. Like if you're recounting a fire commissioner's race, it's smaller versus a legislative race versus a governor's race. So and of course, the larger the recount is, the less the cost is per ballot because of the economy of scale. Because there's a certain, if we're recounting a race that only has 10 votes in it total, we have to go through all the same procedures that you would for a statewide race. And there's that cost, but then, the time, then after that, it's the amount of time it takes.
Okay. And then they have 2 days after certification to let us know if they want to do a recount or not.
Is that candidates?
That's for the candidates. That's for the candidates.
Yeah, if the candidate wants to request if it doesn't fall within the legal criteria where we automatically do a count, then a candidate has 2 days after that. And by the time you get to certification, the canvassing board meeting, the major parties and the candidates already know how close it's going to be, roughly, and whether they're going to think they're ready for that if they're going to request a recount. Like that mayor's race that was 5 votes apart. The elections department here knew well ahead of time that recount was going to happen.
And that was just an automatic recount from the county.
Yes.
From the
Yes, state law says within a certain amount you have to count. And we were spot on after being recounted, you know, so yeah. But it has to be done. So is there any other questions, comments?
So observations can start on Monday, is that right?
So Monday, what happens is, so we hire, well, we have 6 leads. So we have 6 leads that'll come in. Again, they've worked with us for years. And so they come in and they kind of, because we can't be everywhere, you know. So there are leads, they go through their own training of what, you know, they're supposed to be doing. Like we'll have a person that's over there watching over the signature check area. You know, one's walking the floor as people are opening ballots. So it's just different things that they'll be doing, helping out as needed. So their training is Monday at 9. And then once they're done training, then we're going to wait for the teams to come back because they're picking up ballots on Monday from the drop boxes. And then they'll come in and open up the boxes and start putting them in the trays so we can get that process started. Tuesday morning, all the other workers are coming in for training, which is a few hours, and then we'll get to work.
So then, like noon on Tuesday,
Yeah.
if you want to start.
So when you are gathering the ballots, again, you probably already mentioned this, do you have 25 ballots, do you have 25 teams that are going out picking them up at like 8 o'clock at night?
And on election night, there's 25 teams that are going out. Well, yeah, even though this one, we just have someone from the front that works in the office, they just go and lock that drop box. So really it's 24 teams going out around the county to pick up ballots.
And then the other question I have, and I'm not going to get the terminology right here, but we're going to help me out. The room, it's
Air gap.
Air gap.
Okay, help me with that. So,
If you want, I can
you
take
have to have
guys on a tour.
specific, huh?
If you want, I can take you guys on a
Yeah,
tour.
I'd be interested to see that. Yeah, because I didn't know about, can observers go into that room too?
Yep.
Yes?
Yep, not by themselves, but, but
What's
yes,
As long as you're.
not by
in support.
themselves,
Oh, they
but
go with
yes.
like 2 or?
You have to be with somebody
Yeah.
from the.
Can one of you stay with me?
I'll come with you. Daryl.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll give you a
Yeah, I'd love to see
full
that.
tour of it.
Yeah, I'd like that. I'd
It's-
love to see it.
Yeah, it's a lot more exciting when we're actually processing ballots.
So
It's
please
still
come
pretty
back.
cool.
It's still pretty cool.
It's probably one of the best jobs I've ever had. Very rewarding. And I started in licensing, and I loved licensing because I love talking to people that come to the counter. But elections kind of got its hook in me. So, yeah.
Worth the wait.
Yes.
It's awesome.
So yeah.
And for the observer's benefit, I suggest that before you come to actually come here and observe, see what's happening on the live stream video. And if it doesn't look like too much action, you can always call the elections office and say, would it be beneficial to come in today or now? Or I'm really interested in this. When would be a good time for me to come in? And they can tell you whether or not, how much activity is going on, where they have people working that you can observe.
Or if processors are going to be in for the day. Because if there's not enough work, like I said, they may not come in for a day, you know.
Not enough ballots.
So don't waste your time coming.
That's good. And
Yeah,
We
who
like
would be
to
the
have
best
an
person to
empty room.
contact?
I'm glad you
Just the
brought that up.
office, just
Vince.
call the elections office.
Okay.
What's the generic number?
360-337-7128. And if you press 1, you can bypass the whole message spill they go through.
And I'll try to be good about putting that sign up. So if you do log into our live stream, I tried to be good about this last time. I'm going to be better about it this time, but having a little sign up that tells you kind of what we're doing today. So if we're just training, then you'll see that we're training. If ballot processing starts at noon, I'll have a little sign up for that just to give you kind of a better idea of how the day's going to go. But sometimes we just don't know until the morning of.
And so the other times that I think observations would be beneficial is the days that the vote centers are open, right?
Yes.
So you can go to those vote centers.
And
Definitely
when you
come
go
to the
there,
center.
you might even see somebody that's actually doing the vote.
Right, right, exactly.
Using the machine, printing it out.
Yep.
In-person voting.
Amazing, like we used to do.
Some people
Yeah,
still-
my wife hated it when we went to mail-in ballot, because she has this memory of when our kids were little, she would she was taking them with her to vote at the school that my wife worked at, and the kids went to, and they vote, and then she explained the whole process. They leave with the I voted stickers. Yeah, she was thrilled when we went back to having in-person voting. So she never votes by mail. So,
That's great.
just because she loves the process, it feels so good.
Some people do.
Mhm.
Any other questions you guys have? I'll look forward to seeing you guys next week.
And if anybody that wants to go on a tour of the elections processing stuff, you can come with Amy